Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the state of the race of the 2026 Senate election midterms based on the latest polling averages, not the latest poll itself, but the actual polling averages in each and every major important battleground or swing state with pollsmax.com. That's the website I'm using for today's video. Another election YouTuber have given me permission to use their website, so credits to them obviously. But before we begin with the map and the latest polling averages, I will be filling out this map based on these polling averages and all the percentages. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Click the bell so you don't miss on my content. Press the like button to share this video. Don't forget, we have memberships. If you're interested, you can find links to that in the description section. So let's begin with the first state, which is going to be Alaska. And as of right now, according to pollsmax.com's and their latest polling averages, Mary Patola is winning. She has an advantage of 1.2%, a tilt amount, a very slim, narrow lead in the state of Alaska Senate race over Dan Sullivan, who was supposed to be very popular until recently. He is not seen as popular as before. His approval rating has dipped slightly under 40%. If you were to say, if you were to ask this for a few years ago, then yes, Dan Sullivan would be seen as that popular Alaskan senator, but Mary Patola is just so popular in the state of Alaska to the point where it's going to basically unpopular Dan Sullivan. I don't know if that's a correct vocabulary there, but you take a look at the certain swings and the shifts and the demographic trends, and basically the nationwide, it's supposed to favor Democrats. Now I know Republicans, their chances and their odds have increased on Kalshi. I don't know if you want to trust that. You can take that with a grain of salt. But based on what we're seeing right now, it looks like Patola is expected to win. Now, in terms of the margin, my opinion, I would have to say I think she's going to win personally by more. I would say closer to 4 points than what this average is suggesting. But this video is not my prediction. It's what the polling averages alone are saying, and that's going to be tilt blue for Mary Patola in the state of Alaska. Now, as for the next state, it's going to be Texas. It has Ken Paxton. That will be the nominee over John Cornyn. Now, recently, it looks like Ken Paxton will become the nominee. We thought originally, our first initial thought was Donald Trump would endorse John Cornyn. He's deciding not to do so, not to endorse anyone, which is probably going to give Ken Paxton the win there for the primary, not the general, and the general election too, based on this polling average by 1 percentage point, 43 to 42%. Now, recent polls have suggested Tallarico has a lead of anywhere in between 4 to up to 7 or even 8%. I think that's completely and totally outrageous. Now, if Tallarico were to win, which I can see a reality in which he does, I believe there is a chance he does do so. I think he's slightly an improvement compared to Beto O'Rourke. And Ted Cruz is obviously, Ken Paxton is not as strong as someone like Ted Cruz. He's actually seen as more unelectable compared to someone like John Cornyn. But as of right now, according to the polling averages from pollsmax.com, it's a win for Ken Paxton by a tilt amount. So, Mary Patola and Ken Paxton winning by the exact same margins according to the polling averages. Now, as for Nebraska, you have the independent candidate Dan Osborne, who lost in 2024 against Deb Fischer. And Deb Fischer was seen as a weaker candidate compared to someone like Pete Ricketts. So you're probably wondering, wouldn't Pete Ricketts win by more than Deb Fischer? Not quite, because this is a blue wave year. 2024 was a red wave year. So even though Ricketts is stronger than Deb Fischer, he's still going to win by a less of a margin than Deb Fischer, just because of polarization. Polarization is a huge factor. I mean, you have to take that into account, take that into consideration. So he only wins by 2.4%. I think I'm going to have to disagree with that. I personally believe he wins by closer to 4 points or so. So I do think the polling averages are slightly underestimating his support. I believe Deb Fischer also overperformed the polls, so maybe Pete Ricketts does ever so slightly as well. But this is considered a lean red seat, a lean win for Pete Ricketts, who's very popular. Last time he won, it was by double digits. And as for Iowa, Democrats have a better shot at the governor's race rather than the Senate, but it is suggesting it will be within 6 percentage points or so. I personally think that the Republican candidate, Hinson, in this scenario probably wins by closer to 9 points rather than 5.8. I think that's being too generous for the Democrats. But other than that, it's still a likely margin for Republicans. As for the state of Florida, you have Ashley Moody wins by 6 percentage points according to the latest polling averages from pollsmax.com. That's going to be another likely red state. As for Georgia, Democrats are more than likely going to win this. Jon Ossoff is not as popular as someone like Raphael Warnock, especially among African-American voters, but his challenger is not good enough to defeat him or unseat him. Collins in this scenario is not going to win, obviously. I have Jon Ossoff personally winning by 3 percentage points. The polling averages have him up by 5, so a couple more points higher than what my margin currently is. And this is actually enough to characterize Georgia as a likely blue state according to the polling averages, not my actual prediction. My prediction is lean, like I just mentioned, 3 points instead of 5, what this polling averages are suggesting. As for the state of North Carolina, I also do believe Roy Cooper, the Democrat, will win. My margin personally is closer to 6 percentage points or 5. Polling averages have him up by 8, so that's a likely margin. I also do have him up by a likely margin, but not that likely. I think 6 is more fair to say than 8 percentage points. He's going up against Michael Whatley, who's not the worst Republican. He's also not the best. It's pretty much what they have at this point. Roy Cooper is just too strong. He was the former governor of this state. He's going to obviously win. This is a blue wave year. North Carolina is going to shift a little more to the left, even though it's still a very purple state. Ohio, you have John Husted, who, a decently respected senator, kind of popular, I would say, in the state of Ohio. Sherrod Brown, obviously, lost in 2024 due to the same reason Republicans will lose. Some of them will lose in 2028 due to polarization. Polarization was the reason why Sherrod Brown got unseated, I believe, to J.D. Vance in 2024. I'm not saying John Husted will lose to Brown. He very well can. But as of right now, the polling averages suggest John Husted wins by a tilt amount of 1 percentage point. I agree. I think around 1 point win for Husted is fair. As for Minnesota, it's likely blue for Democrats according to the polling averages. 5 percentage points. That's a likely amount for the Democratic Party. As for Michigan, we have 3 more states before we close out this video. Mike Rogers defeats Abdul El Sayed by 3.7%, so 3 to 4% according to the latest polling averages, and that is exactly in par with the majority of the polling averages. I can confirm that is accurate because if you go on Wikipedia for the Senate elections, he consistently leads El Sayed. Rogers consistently takes the lead. Not one poll shows Rogers loses to Abdul El Sayed, which is why Mallory McMahon was probably the best hope for Democrats, or even someone like Haley Stevens, but McMahon was probably their only hope. It is becoming a reality in which El Sayed might actually become the Democratic nominee. If that's the case, I believe Mike Rogers does in fact win by a point. Not as much as 3.7, but still I do believe he does win in this scenario. But as of right now, according to the polling averages, Michigan's lean Republican for the Senate race. You have New Hampshire. It's going to be a likely state for Chris Pappas going up against the Sununu brother, I believe. So Chris Pappas wins by 5 points. I personally have him winning by 7, so slightly higher, but still in the same likely margin as characterized. Last and final state before we end off this video is going to be Maine. Plattner and Collins, this is a very interesting one. I keep going back and forth. I originally had Collins winning, and then I switched it back to Plattner, and then I switched it back to Collins. As of right now, I switched it back to Plattner. I think Plattner wins. Is probably going to keep going back and forth. But I think Plattner wins by just 2 percentage points. That's my margin. The polling averages have him winning by closer to 6, so 5.5%. That's a likely margin. I believe Susan Collins at some point has to get unseated. I know she's seen as this electoral juggernaut in this state, and Plattner had that, that Nazi tattoo, which may hurt him or whatever. It actually may bring more voters to him, to be honest, at the current state of the nation, which is a reality that we all have to think about. 49 to 51 seats. Republicans retain control of the Senate, according to the latest polling averages from pollsmax.com. Like I mentioned earlier, the election YouTuber, this is his website, I believe. He gave me permission to use this for the video. Credits go to him. One last final reminder before we end off this video is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss all my content. Press the like button, share this video. Don't forget we have memberships if you're interested. You can find links to that in the description section.